What's up guys? Today we're going to be working on the fuel filler. Again. No, you're not watching the same video you watched last time. We are working on the fuel filler yet again. After I did the last video and after I put it out, I showed my wife the fold down taillight fuel filler thing, and she's like, well, why don't you just use, because I showed her it's kind of hard to get the gas cap in and out, and she said, well, why don't you just use like what my Fusion has, the capless filler. And this was the same day that I'd put that video up and I started getting comment after comment about the capless filler. It's kind of like one of those things, why didn't I think of that? It's just further proving that my wife is always smarter than me and you guys are smarter than me. So yeah, today we're taking care of that. I'd also thought about looking into the aftermarket. You can make the aftermarket caps that have the fill through hole in the center, but I couldn't find any with the Ford filler neck threads, and I had also read some things about those failing within like 6 months to a year. The little spring ends up breaking and then it vents too much or something and it throws a check engine light. And even though I'm not running the Vic gauges, I'm using aftermarket gauges, it does still show me a code. It's kind of a cool way that the Speed Hut gauges do show you a code. It can be incognito, but the thing is, the less codes the better, right? So looking at junkyard prices and stuff for the capless filler, finding any wrecked late model Fords with the capless fill neck, they were kind of expensive really, to be honest. And get on eBay and lo and behold, I find a good deal on a filler neck out of a 2015 Ford Transit with the capless filler. This is actually thicker steel than the stock Vic. There was a few people this flare here that asked, why don't you just weld all around it instead of I use JB Weld? Because it was almost like not too far from like a soda can thickness. It felt like it just didn't feel very substantial. This does. This is much thicker, so that'll be nice. And there's something I need to show you that's pretty incredible about this particular Ford part, being part number P444K 141027, or just the filler neck out of a 2015 Transit. Check this out. This is pretty cool. All right, so if you're using the bed height that I'm using, which is like pretty much the standard bed height, probably raised about a ½ inch over stock, and you want to put a hidden fuel filler with the fold-out light, use the 2015 Ford Transit filler neck, because believe it or not, even this bed height, that's right about where the filler sits behind the taillight. This bracket is perfectly even with the bed floor. That's pretty amazing. So this is going to work so much better. And then I'm going to be raising my bed floor, which is going to be about here. So I'm just going to use this whole thing, and I've already got the flare built into it, ready to go. That couldn't have worked out any better. But before we get going on all this filler neck stuff, we need to take care of the tailgate and the step plate on the driver's side. Just knock those out, get those out of the way, get those in epoxy, and then we'll get back to this. All right, so I'm working on this tailgate a little bit, and I'm not gonna worry too much about the dents in it. It's got plenty of dents in it. You can probably see, it's a shop truck. It's gonna get more dents because I'm gonna be hauling stuff back there. So not too hung up on it. Just gonna fix a few areas that are just, need some attention. I wanna address these factory welds. You can see they're cracking and they kind of sloppy to begin with. So I'm gonna clean those up and then just do a nice bead across on all four corners and get that taken care of. So just cleaning up the tailgate a little bit, taking care of the holes that were drilled in it for a license plate, looks like, and then those reflectors on either side. There was rust starting to form, just surface rust behind it. Like I said, I'm not going to worry about getting this perfectly straight. It is what it is. If I did hammer and dolly it quite a bit to get it pretty close. If I did get it all laser straight and put filler on it, this is still a shop truck. If something rolled back in the bed and hit it and cracked the filler, that would look a lot worse than these little dents. So I'm not worried about it. I am hitting a few spots out here. So just to kind of at least get it decent, but the middle part I'm not worried about. So I'm gonna zap these holes with the welder and then kind of work on some of these welds that need attention. And then that should be ready for epoxy. I removed the white paint from the Ford lettering because it had some surface rust, and so I figured I'd just get rid of the rust. But that actually looks pretty cool with the bare steel. Ford. Might have to remember that after it gets painted. This bumper definitely has stories, I imagine. Surprisingly straight too. Usually these things are all tweaked. Got some stuff growing on it. Whew, Ford does not mess around, did not mess around with the primer on their bumpers. There's a few little dents and dings in the bumper. I am not putting body filler on a bumper. It'll be fine. It's a bumper, but it's straight, which is nice. And for those that are curious, I know many of you already know, what I'm using is just a stripping disc on my grinder, paint stripping disc to get the paint off. Some guys are new here. That's what I've used on the majority of this truck. Well, a good amount of this truck. I've been using that and then the Eastwood paint stripper on a buffer to keep the heat down on the sheet metal stuff. So this step plate is completely rotted right here. I mean, just totally rotted. That ridge there is gone. This was all rust. It's all been treated with rust reformer, killed it. Basically took it all off with a wire wheel and then put rust reformer on it. And then epoxied. And then we're gonna be putting a new step plate in because that'll look a lot better once painted than this mess. Okay, so before I go any further, I'm gonna bring a door over here to make sure it will still clearance this new replacement step, because it is a skin over, and just wanna make sure it will fit. I'd rather tackle that now than later when it's painted. These things are not light. So I'm unable to get this door to fit. Like, it looks good up here. It looks like it wants to work over here. And I'm like, it came off of there. It used to fit. No, these were the doors that I got in Omaha. These are off of a different, so this is the first time I've actually put these doors on this truck. And so, yeah, there's shims right here that the factory puts on. So just take a few of these little shims out because it's hitting right here. Actually, I'm not even going to worry about it because then if I do shut it, it's going to be hard to open because I took all the mechanism out, but the latch is still on. So we'll take these shims out and then check. Oddly enough, I was kind of hoping these were stuck so I could try this. I bought this a long time ago and I've never used it yet. It's a screw buster and it's got a few different sizes. This is not a paid advertisement, by the way. I bought this with my own money. And then you put it in there and you put your air chisel on the other hand, or on the other end, and it'll bust the screw loose. But luckily these are coming out just fine. Don't get to play with my new toy. I already got the door on and these gaps look really good. I'm impressed. Lines up pretty good there. It'll take a little bit of adjusting, but a little adjustment over here will make a big adjustment over here. This is pretty good for eyeballing it. But yeah, these gaps all look good. It fits. It doesn't interfere with the step plate. So we're good to move forward. And if you're curious what this beautiful wood grain is all about, this is multiple layers of skim coat. But when you put epoxy on it, sucks into everything, so you can see that. This you won't see once we get filler primer on and taken care of, leveled out. But yeah, that's what the wood grain's about. I am going to have to cut this filler neck down. Looking at it, if I was to use it in its stock form, it exits right here, which is far below the inlet of the gas tank. So I'm just going to chop one end off, chop another end off, take the bend out, and then we'll just make a cover for it later. Like I said, the bed's going to be raised up, so it's not even really going to be noticeable. But yeah, let's get started on that. All right, so this came out good. It's just the length I wanted, and there's no daylight coming through there. So that'll work. You know, if I put my welding table in a more convenient spot and actually kept it clean, I might be more inclined to use it. All right, getting ready to tack in the capless filler. You know, guys, I don't know why I didn't think about this. I've filled up my wife's Fusion I don't know how many times. Why didn't I think about this before? Just back here doing all this over again. But that's okay. Thinking right about there. We're eyeballing it here. That's why it's nice just to tack it in. That looks pretty good. Could go up a little more or down on this side. All right, got you guys a camera angle you can actually see. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So much more room. Actually, I can come out a little farther. Break that tack. Try again. I know there's a proper way to do this with all sorts of measuring and whatnot, but I've never been much for that. Oh yeah, third time's a charm, it appears. Oh yeah. Oh, that's it. Let's make it permanent. Sometimes you gotta do a little garage yoga. Beautiful. Almost like I knew what I was doing. And I should make it known that I did clean this whole unit out really good before I started going welding on it and all that. Oh yeah, much better. Much better. Well, all right, this is what we're looking at behind the taillight. The capless fuel filler. Beautiful. I'll get all this back here cleaned up real good. I'm gonna let it cool down and then knock down those welds and then make it look pretty. But most of this is going to be covered. There's going to be a cover here, and then the bed of the floor is going to be right about there. So in reality, it's just going to be one little area. And I think somebody mentioned, I mentioned that last time, make another one on the other side. And I really like that idea. You think the same way I do. Symmetry. So what usually happens with the videos is I put them up and I let them process, like unpublished, for usually about 24 hours. And then when I put that video up, and then my wife came home and I showed her what I did in the last video, and then she mentioned, well, why don't you just use the capless system like on my Fusion? And I was like, that's a really good idea. And so I was like, oh, and that video goes live, because I just set it to schedule to go live 24 hours later. Yeah, I'm gonna look like an idiot that I didn't even think about that. And sure enough, thank you guys so much for reaching out and saying, hey, why don't you use the capless system? It definitely worked out better. It gives me more room. It moves the filler closer, so I don't have to go quite as far in to get the fuel nozzle in there. And the best thing is I don't have to fish a cap out of there. So this worked out fantastic. We're really getting close. Next video, I'm going to be doing some epoxy on the tailgate, the bumper, finish up epoxy over the step well, and then epoxy the inside of the bed, and then we're going to start working on the inside of the bed, raising that bed floor to a regular height. And I'll explain in that video why I prefer to do that over the hump. I think some of it's obvious, but some of it I'll just point out other little issues of having the hump in the bed. But that's going to do it for this one, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I truly appreciate it. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a thumbs up. It lets me know you care. And hey, consider subscribing if you're not subscribed. I'd love to have you. Thank you guys so much, and I'll see you in the next one.